Hi, this is your host, Laura Powers, and I'm so pleased to have Kimberly Seltzer on the show. She is a confidence therapist and an authentic dating strategist. And we had Kimberly on the show years ago. We actually just reconnected. It was super fun through a mutual circle that we're in. Shout out to Allison Melody for reconnecting us. And thought it'd be great to have her back on the show to talk about dating, confidence, and how we can all have better situations in love. Thank you so much for being a guest on the show.
I think you used your psychic ability to reconnect us. I just have that feeling.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is that when you get references to multiple from multiple sources, that is like the universe being like, hey, so we connected at Podfest, and then through Allison's group, and then another woman, Cassandra, who runs the Clean Beauty, she was like, oh, I was just talking to Kimberly Seltzer. And I was like, okay, I'm getting this message like from the universe. Like we were definitely supposed to reconnect. So
You know what I love about that, and it relates a lot to the dating thing, is that a lot of times, we are sent messages and there are things that are thrown in front of us, and it could be, men, it could be certain women, whatnot. But it's not until you actually focus on those things that you end up having an opportunity. And I was just talking to a client the other day because she was like, Kim, this is a perfect example of what we're talking about. She's like, Kim, I take the same route to work every single day and I never see any guys, because I was teaching her about body language and being open and just making sure that she's taking in everything as she's walking in her life. And she's like, no, trust me, I've been doing this all the time. There's just no good men out there. I've exhausted all my resources, right? So I said, do me a favor. And then we'll get into the other stuff. But it's a funny perspective too when you think about this thing. She's like, I'll try it. I'll try the coaching. I'll try making eye contact. And I said, yeah, just do me a favor. Take the same route to work. But this time I want you to take the blinders off and I want you to look around and notice who's noticing you. And I want you to just smile and engage into the world and just see what happens. That's all I ask. That's your homework for the week.
Yeah.
And so she comes back and she's like, oh my God, Kim, do you have a voodoo doll? I said, no, I don't know. What happened? And she's like, well, I did what you said and I took the same route. And I see this really nice looking man sitting on a bench. And I notice him noticing me. I smile. We have a great conversation. And I had a date with him this week. Now that guy ended up being her boyfriend, fast forward 6 months.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. I think so much of this is just literally paying attention, and something I talk a lot about with signs and messages and just being aware. Most people, like you said, they have blinders on. They're not engaging. And then when you don't do that, whatever is your sort of programming about what's there or how things are, is maybe how you think about it, is what's going to come forward. And so as soon as you start to pay attention, things shift very dramatically. So we talked before, and by the way, if you haven't listened to that, I definitely recommend listening, because I think we talked a lot about narcissists on that other show that we did. And I think that's an important topic if you are an empath, if you struggle with healthy boundaries and, kind of seeing people for who they are. Definitely recommend listening to that episode. But, even if you are not looking for love, or if you're not single, I think everything that we're going to talk about is really important, because whatever shows up for you in your love and relationships it's like impacting your whole life. And so this isn't really kind of in a silo just about, kind of love and relationships or dating or whatever. This is about like everything. So even like you said, I'm sure that woman, as she started to do that, that her career probably got better, like opportunities showed up because you're engaging more. So before we get into that though, let's talk about just a little about your background, how you got into this, and then we can go into the heart of the interview.
Yeah, I know. I dove right in. So yeah, it's interesting, my journey. Years ago, I practiced as a therapist for many, many years in a traditional sense. I lived in Chicago, and my short story of the long version is that I had this traditional life. I had kids. I was married. I still have the kids. don't have the husband any longer, so you know where this is going. We all pick up and we move here to La La Land, and we got here. We do what everyone else does here. We get a divorce. I'm joking. Obviously, there were issues, right, going on in this fairy
one
tale.
thing about LA, it really brings everything to the surface, and so
100%.
you go through a lot of transformation when you go to Los Angeles, in my opinion. So that may be in your relationship as well.
Exactly. And in retrospect, obviously it wasn't the move to LA, right?
No.
It did force us to kind of look at our relationship. But here, lo and behold, here I was in this new foreign land, all alone in my new little castle, and not knowing what to do with my new life. And at that point, I could not be a therapist, right? Like if anyone had come to me in that point of my life, I would have been like, you think you have issues? Let me go on the couch for a second. There's no way I could help anybody. Right. In fact, I couldn't even help myself. And my clothes definitely reflected, like how I looked definitely reflected the state I was in. I call it my black period. So if you saw me back then, I was wearing ginormous black clothes. Okay. Wait, just picture this. I had nursing bras on still. And mind you, I was not nursing any longer. My kids were a little bit older, and Birkenstocks and all that. And I look in the mirror, I'm like, oh my God, like what happened to me? What have I become? And, really what I realized is that I was stuck. I was stuck in my clothes. I was stuck in my mindset. I did not know how to move forward. And here's the thing that actually transformed the way that I help people today. And that up until that point, I believed in working on the inside out. But at that moment in time, I had done a lot of work on myself. Okay. Like I had a great support system. I went to counseling. I still could not get out of my own way. So what happened is I looked in the mirror one day. I just got at that, like, when you're in that fed up moment, you're like, oh my God, I can't take this anymore. I can't look at myself anymore. I go shopping. I swear to God, this is what happened to me. I go shopping and I'm doing all the things that I normally do. I'm choosing black clothes that were probably 3 sizes too big. And this personal shopper, she comes up to me and she said, ma'am, I've been watching you and I thought maybe you'd like to try this on. And she holds up this red dress that looked like 3 sizes too small. I said, oh, that's really sweet of you, but that's really not my size. And that's so not my color. And she said, honey, that is your size. That is your color. Try it on. Mm-hmm. And like we were talking about before, the universe sometimes will give you a message. You can hear it in one moment and sometimes you can't. That moment, I heard it loud and clear. And it was like she hit me over the head with that red dress. And I was like, you know what? I am going to try that on. So I slip it on, I twirl around like Cinderella, and I look in the mirror and I was like, there I am. Oh my gosh. Like, I felt like I was a princess, in a literal sense. I could feel it in my body, this shift. And I said, I'm going to buy this dress and I'm going to walk out into the world. I'm going to just marinate in it. And I really looked at it almost as a costume because I didn't totally believe it yet.
Yeah.
But this is when all the magic started happening. And I realized there was this symbiotic relationship between the outer and the inner in ways of building confidence, right? And so when I walked out into the red dress, I noticed men noticing me, and it was scary at first. And I realized that the black clothes really was serving as a cloak so that I could remain invisible. But now I was forced to really embrace that and, face my fears. What was I scared about in talking to those aliens that I called men? And because I hadn't dated in so long and it was all foreign. So that's where kind of the journey began. And really I recognized, and this is how I work today, is that I now work from the outside in. And what I do is I implement style, emotional, and social intelligence into people's lives. So I'll start with style intelligence, meaning I do makeovers, I help with people's appearance, first impressions, body language. Then I go inward and help with people in the way they express themselves and manage feelings. And then I take it to the streets and work on their social intelligence. And yes, that includes flirting and how we interact with the world.
I love that. No, I think there is a huge connection between, the outside world, our bodies, our spirit. And I didn't go through quite the same journey, but I went through some health issues at the same time while I was in my marriage. And then I let go of my marriage at the same time as I started my sort of health and spiritual evolution. And there was absolutely a shift in all of those things that you talk about. So I, at that point, lost weight. I had gained weight, partially due to this medical issue, but also I think just because of my situation and my kind of, lack of energy. And I was wearing a lot of black at that point. So you talk about the black. And, the thing about black is it's a very grounding color. So that's the other piece, is that when you're going through emotional trauma, so you think about our culture where, when someone has died, or, for funerals, you wear black. And I feel like there's a coping element of that, which is black is very grounding, kind of helps pull you down and help you when you're mourning, when you're sad, when you're struggling. And so it made sense to wear black. But then as I've shifted, I've incorporated more and more color. And like, I never used to wear white. So you see I'm like wearing white right now. And like, I never used to wear white before. And I feel like as my energy has shifted, so has my use of color. So I think that's
so true. It's
really
so
interesting.
true.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of psychology with color, and they've done actually research on different colors and, the impact it can have on, relating to other people. For instance, as we're talking about love and attraction, red and hot pink, kind of like what I have on, actually is very highly attractive to men.
Oh yeah. Totally.
Right. So like when you're dating or you're putting up a dating profile, I always say, a little hack for women and getting guys to stop on your profile is to have at least one picture of you in red. At least it has to be the right red, of course. There's different shades, but yeah, it's super powerful, and it does kind of regulate moods. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah, it perks you up. I wear a lot of red dresses in particular, and like whenever I do, people are like, "Wow, red!"
Yeah.
They're very responsive. And again, even if you're in a relationship, this is also just about how you present yourself to the world, engaging. So let's talk a little bit about that. Like, aside from being aware and kind of color therapy, what are some things that people could do to just feel more confident and feel better about themselves as a whole?
Yeah. So like I said, I always start on the outside. And what I love about it is that, all these other things in life, especially when we're working on the inside, takes time, right? We work on stuff, trying to create new patterns or habits for ourselves, that kind of thing. But what I love, it's almost like, working on that outside is the quickest gateway to increase your confidence. And sometimes you don't even recognize or know that that's something that could help you. And I'll give you a small example of that with someone I worked with recently. But, just some quick tips around that. I call it the 3 C's. And this is something everybody can do at home, and ways of like auditing your closet and your clothes. So number 1, it's looking at the cut of your clothes. And I'm very scientific in the way I approach clothes. Being a trained image consultant, we're a little bit different than stylists in that I really took time in understanding people's, body shape. And once you know your body shape, there are 5 of them if you're women, there are 3 if you're a man. You'll know exactly what clothes flatter that figure and what clothes to stay away from. And on my site, I actually, seltzerstyle.com, I do give a free body type guide so that you know how to measure yourself. So again, that actually can really increase your confidence in clothes. Like often I'll do like virtual makeovers, and I'll have people take pictures of themselves in their old clothes. And I will not do the makeover until they see themselves in the picture, because what we see in the mirror also is different than what we see in the picture.
Totally.
Right? And
oh yeah.
Yes. So that is a huge game changer for a lot of people. It's like, wow, I didn't realize I looked like that. And sometimes it's worse and sometimes it's better, but then teaching people what is a good cut for them makes a huge difference in the way they look. The second C is color. We already talked about that. That really does make a difference in the way people see you. There's certain vibrations of color that speak to different people depending on how I'm working with people, if it's for business, if it's for love, whatever it is. And then the third C is confidence outfit. Like, look in your closet. Everybody has a go-to outfit. Everybody does. Like if you had a social event tomorrow or a date, what do you pull? Take a look at those clothes and figure out what is it about that makes you feel confident in them. Is it the color? Do you feel comfortable? Do you get compliments? And, just looking at those three things, it can really make a difference. It's like what we started the podcast with. It's paying attention to some of this stuff and seeing how that affects your attitude, your mood, and your confidence.
Yeah, I see people a lot of times where I don't have the training, but I think I have a pretty good natural kind of affinity with clothing, and I
Oh
used to be
yeah, you do. I've seen pictures.
Okay, thank you. I used to be a costume designer, so I've definitely
Yes.
had some training, just not in that area specifically. And I see people all the time. I'm like, oh my gosh, that person is wearing literally the worst thing for their body type. Like it's like emphasizing the things that aren't the things to be emphasized. And
right.
so I think even if you don't really understand that's happening, it still will impact your confidence. And so I think we all want to put our best foot forward. And this isn't about being shallow or judgmental. It's just like literally when you feel good, you look good, you feel good, and it all impacts you. And I absolutely believe you about photos and videos. Like having done a fair amount of television and on-camera work and modeling, it's like when you see photos there, it's like, oh, that's how things are. And that really can get you to have more of an understanding of what's really happening. And I think that's important because like you said, when you look in the mirror, that is not what other people are seeing. You're seeing it from your lens, and there's something about the camera which really brings things. So I really do recommend getting regular photo shoots and things like that. It helps you know what's happening and really know what's going on. And when I was shopping for my wedding dress when I'm getting married, and I'm divorced now, but still, I'll never forget this. There were some dresses that I loved how they looked, I thought, and then I would see a picture and then I was like, no.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So
yes.
definitely take a photo.
Yeah. But see, that goes back to the point when you know your body type a little better, you'll know exactly, like you might see something on the mannequin that looks really good, but that's not your body type. That's the mannequin.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So.
and it can be surprising. Like I'm fairly thin, but still like there's, bias cut dresses, for example, aren't flattering on me. I love the look of them as a whole, but on me, I'm very curvy, even though I'm fairly thin. And it just doesn't look good. It doesn't lay well on me. Like, and I really appreciate that aesthetic style and then be like, yeah, but it's not for me.
Right. And I think that's why a lot of people hypothesize that they don't look good in clothes is because they're just putting on the wrong thing.
Yeah.
I'll never forget, you'll appreciate this story. So I had the pleasure of somebody hired me to do a photo shoot with 10 women to they wanted to kind of revamp their business and their website and all that. So I had 2 hours on a street in Santa Monica that had only 2 stores to shop for 10 women. Okay. It was not an easy it was not an easy task. Okay. But the story is actually quite touching. What happened is everybody magically got an outfit at this one store except for one woman. And I was looking around and I couldn't find her. And I see her in the corner and she's bawling. She's crying her eyes out. And so I went up to her. I said, well, what's going on? And she said, this is just like, middle school all over again. I'm the ugly duckling. I'm the one that's not going to the prom. I'm the one that can't wear a dress. And so it brought up a lot of issues, from her childhood. And I actually see this happen a lot. So I can't imagine not being a therapist and doing what I do, because it really does, connect to some issues. But I looked at her and I gave her a little bit of tough love after a hug. And I said, look, I get that. And I know this is painful. However, this has nothing to do with your body. This has everything to do with this store and the brand. And she's like, kind of looked at me and I said, yeah, if you give me just another hour, I want to take you across the street and see if that makes a difference. So thank God this other store had brands that really fit her. And so she goes into the dressing room and she comes out wearing a dress and she looked amazing. And she's crying and she's like, oh my gosh, Kim, all this time. I mean, she was in her 30s. She's like, I never thought I could wear a dress and I look so beautiful. And from there, like her confidence just started soaring and her photos were beautiful and really up-leveled her business. She attracted a guy. Like, again, it's a domino effect. It's kind of what you're saying. It's not just the superficial thing. What happens is that it gives people evidence of something and some validation of feeling good. And with that energy, you can keep going with it. And so that's why I love seeing the impact these makeovers can have.
Yeah, and I really see a huge connection in my work between, love and romance, dating relationships, and career and money. Huge connection. So a lot of times when a person is struggling in one area, if you focus on the other area, it unblocks things and gets it to shift. So if you're really focused on love, maybe focusing on your career or vice versa, it actually helps things unblock. But I do find that how you treat yourself and value yourself absolutely is reflected in your relationships. And I think the work that you're talking about is really about getting to appreciate and love ourselves and treat ourselves better. And then we can have that from others. And then we can also have more money and, more opportunities for work as well. So it's all connected.
100%. It's like we're speaking the same language. I love it. I call it leaking. It's like what seeps out into one area, you see it leak into other areas. I mean, and I actually just did a podcast on this on my podcast, and where I coached somebody live, and she wasn't progressing on conversations on Bumble. Okay. So this is where it started. But really what it had to do with was her messaging that she got, growing up, that she wasn't good enough. So this feeling of not being good enough and putting herself out there was literally holding her back and progressing on dates, progressing in conversations. So she would hold back and wait for the guy to ask her things, or she'd be attracted to the narcissist or the fixer-uppers, and so all those things were intertwined. And when we got to the core of it, it was like peeling away, the layers of an onion. When we got to the core of it, she started crying, and she's like, I didn't realize that this really is where I'm getting stuck. And so again, like, sometimes just tweaking a few things. Like, we started with a conversation. That was just the outside stuff. But then it gave her the, kind of wherewithal and awareness that there were other things she needed to work on.
Yeah, completely. I think it's really important to understand that. And whatever your patterns are with yourself, they will show up in love. Like, it's basically,
oh my gosh, yes.
So it's like, if you're having a hard time dating or a hard time relationship, like, it's really like, okay, what's going on with me?
Totally. Oh my gosh. This is not compartmentalized into one area.
No,
Yes.
no. Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. So let's talk about, your work for women that are in relationships. How do you help them, and what are some common things that you see happen with women that are currently in relationships?
It's really interesting. I work in stages, right? So when people come to me and they're single, I talk about the different stages of dating. People don't realize there's actually stages in dating. And then once people get to the last stage, which is a full-blown relationship, then there's a whole other slew of issues that go on, as we all know. I mean, honestly, relationships sometimes are more work than the dating. And a lot of,
Sure.
and again, what you were saying before, what shows up in the relationship often showed up with challenges they were having when they were dating. And so, I'm very, I'm not like a cookie cutter approach coach type of thing. Like, I think it's because of being a therapist for so long. I really like understanding where people come from, their journey, and how that's impacting their patterns now. And so when they come to me and either I started from the beginning with them and now they're in a relationship and I help them keep going, or they're just coming to me because they recognize they have a piece in why the relationship is breaking down. That's what I help people with, and sometimes it's learning how to date your partner again. Like, I've done a lot, especially lately. I've been doing a lot of work on, because, couples are kind of renegotiating their relationships, and so you forget, people become really almost too comfortable and complacent, and you forget kind of what attracted you to each other in the beginning. And so getting back to basics sometimes is just like a really easy thing, and thing that people don't even realize can help reignite a relationship. But then, there's individual issues, right? And I always recommend couples therapy if people are in relationships. I'm a big fan of it. I don't do it anymore. I used to, but I like helping people kind of own their piece and what can they do to help, further things along. And that's the empowerment. And I say this even with singles. It's not about changing other people, right? Like everyone's going to be who they are. But the empowerment comes, and I know you teach this too, is what can you do to get a different result? And so that's where I really work with people.
Yeah, and really honoring your piece in it. When I was going through my divorce, I think I went to counseling as well, and I'm really glad that I did. It was literally life-changing for me. And one of the things the therapist helped me to honor was my piece in all of it. Like, yes, there were some really bad things that happened to me in that situation in the relationship, but it helped me to not feel a victim and to understand, how I got there. And honestly, it led to me working as a psychic, because I was like, I need to find out about my intuition and like honor that. Like, what is it that I didn't see? Like, how did I not see this coming? And it's such a more empowered place to be in when you focus on yourself.
Yes.
Period. So whatever's going on, too often, yeah, like you said, people are focused on how do I change this other person? Well, that's a losing game. But if you shift to yourself, sometimes it's just the dynamic, and in a way, it kind of seems like that person is changing, or maybe you're just like, wow, what am I doing here? I need to get out of this situation. But either way, it's good.
Exactly. No. And it's amazing just by tweaking, like just the way you're communicating with your partner, or maybe how you're showing up yourself. Like maybe you're unhappy with your weight and that is leaking into the relationship. And it's not that he's unhappy with you, but you're unhappy with you. So it affects him. And so that's also an interesting thing to determine. A lot of times you're like, oh, he doesn't like my body weight, but then I'll talk to the guy and he's like, I love her and her body. It's her that's not really happy. And so it's affecting us. And I find that to be true so much of the time. So again, it goes back to that confidence thing. And that's why I really am embracing being a confidence therapist, is because I think the breakdown, no matter if we're talking about relationships or dating, always comes down to two things: confidence and communication. And if you can get a handle on those two things, and if you look at like previous relationships, there's always breakdowns in those two areas. That's really, something to work with. And again, like what you were saying, that's where the empowerment comes in, because there are things you can do to shift things and make, kind of new habits for yourself.
Yeah, and I think even a lot of communication issues have their root in a lack of confidence.
Yes.
Meaning like the communication happens as a result of this lack of confidence, insecurities, things from our childhood, obviously, family, society. And then from my perspective, this is like things from past lives. Like, I mean, it's very deep.
Oh my God, I can't even imagine that layer. I just start with people when they're an embryo. You go way back.
Oh, yeah. Well, the thing is, whatever we're dealing with in this life, from my perspective as a psychic, we've probably also been dealing with it in other lives. So you can look at it from just this life, but I just think it goes even deeper than that. And so much of this is unconscious. It's this, unconscious patterning that we have, and we don't even realize we're doing it. And I've had to do a lot of work on this because I was born into, an abusive situation with my father. And, so all that sort of patterning happened in a very bad situation. And so I've had to do a lot of conscious work. So what do you recommend, or do you have any tools for people that are like, I know that there are some stuff in there that isn't what I want? How do I shift that?
Yeah. And I'm just going to use a term that you probably use. These are hard demons to fight. And like from a psychological standpoint, there's something called the familiarity principle, where that we always, it's almost like our brain is on a default button, right? Like that we will be attracted to and gravitate towards things that we've experienced in the past, good, bad, or indifferent, right? And like, so intellectually we know, oh my God, that abusive person is not good for me, yet somehow I'm really attracted to him, And I think a lot of times it's the brain's way of trying to make it better, like having a corrective experience, and it's subconscious. We're not always aware with it. We just know, wait, this is familiar. Yeah, I know this feeling. I know this feeling of not being good enough. Yeah. This is right. So how do we break that? And again, it's different for everybody, and that's why I like to understand where people come from with that. But I find that often starting again from some of these just like actionable things that people can do to break the patterns, it gives people a muscle to work with. So I'll give you an example. I often work with people out in the field, and I do these wing girl sessions, and
That's so fun.
I teach people how to flirt and be more approachable and interact. And I work on people's communication and all of that and first impressions. And there was this woman, I'll never forget this. I was working and I was just doing like one session with a group of women actually at this period of time. And she really stood out to me because she was so stiff in her body language, and she was gorgeous, right? Like, and you would think from afar that this would be a very approachable woman because she was dressed well. I mean, the style was not her issue. But there was something going on in her body language that I couldn't quite put my finger on. I'm like, there's something, off. So I approached her with it and I said, I'm just getting the feeling that you have this like guard up and you're almost like repelling interaction. It's the stiffness that you have in your body. You're also like not making eye contact and you're looking around. What's going on? And she literally like started crying. Like she first of all, she had no awareness. And it's hard to see herself, obviously. That's why these sessions are so powerful. She had no awareness that she was doing that in her body. She thought she had everyone fooled as she was talking to me about it. She's like, I was sexually abused when I was young. And I'm scared and I keep getting into these horrible relationships that are abusive. So I guess I didn't realize how much I had my guard up because I'm just scared. And so for her, it was such a great breakthrough knowing that, and here's the empowerment that she could just work on her body language. And I told her, I said, you don't have to take off the whole armor, right? Like, I don't want you standing there naked, but could you put the sword down? Right?
Yeah.
Can you put the shield down? Can you peek through, your little helmet and just say hi? Let's just start there. And so from there, it was really just having her have practice at it. And what that took was going out in public and practicing over and over and over again, just like I did in my red dress, until she got evidence that she was safe. And then she was ready for something else. So I always say it's the small wins that add up to the bigger picture. Start small, because if you're just going to say to yourself, oh, I'm just going to be more approachable, I'm just going to be more confident, I mean, that's maddening. Nobody can achieve that. But if you break it down into just action steps, that's what will help you get there.
Yeah, and I think from an energetic perspective, like I teach a lot about manifesting and the importance of manifesting, that it's really like a muscle. Like
Yeah,
you work it and you start small. Like you're not gonna go try to, bench press 200 pounds or whatever right away. You like start with
totally.
little things, and the same is true manifesting. And then as you start to build confidence and feel like it's working, then you start to aim for bigger things, and it does work. And your energy is, I think, the most important. And so whether this is love, opportunities, friendships, whatever it is, if you're very guarded, because I think that's what you're talking about, that woman who she was very guarded and kind of closed, you're not open to opportunities, and things will be shut out. It'll be hard for you to shift. And let's talk about how to, be confident and move forward, to be open, but at the same time to have strong boundaries, because I think that's an area that's especially tough for women.
Oh, that's such a good question. Yeah. And, I think first is looking at the definition of what confidence is to you, because I think sometimes, especially for women, people equate confidence to being bitchy or cocky or full of herself, that kind of thing. And that's not what it's about. Confidence, I believe, and this is how I define it, actually has to do with experience. Like, I don't believe that there's one person out there who is not confident, because there's always an area in someone's life that they do feel confident in. And for me, it's figuring out what that is and how they got there. So for instance, if you're not confident in dating, maybe because you haven't dated or you've been in one relationship, but then you look at your work life and you could do your work with your eyes closed.
Right.
Why? Because you got experience and positive experience around it. So that's the thing, because sometimes people can have experience, but it's a negative experience. So that, again, will shoot your confidence down. And so that's the first thing is, again, it goes back to that whole like muscle thing that we're talking about. It's building that muscle, getting experience and exposure. So if you haven't been out there dating, guess how you can get confident? Practice dating. Don't get in a relationship. Oh my God, if you have not dated, I just want to like put that out there because this is a big mistake a lot of people do. They try to jump into relationship mode and you're not there. If you haven't had the experience, get some experience just dating without getting attached so that you learn about yourself. Really what you're doing is you're dating yourself. And with that, you're building your confidence. And that's when you are going to attract something that's right for you.
That's great.
That's one thing. The other thing is looking at the 3 areas of confidence. Actually, I break down confidence into 3 different zones. You have the outer confidence, right? You have the inner confidence, and then you have social confidence. And again, like if you think about those areas, rate yourself from 1 to 10. Again, you might be a little bit different in numbers in those 3 areas. And it's taking a look at the one that's lower and saying, okay, what do I need to do to build that muscle, to build that confidence?
That's great. Now, I think it's really important, and I love that you brought that up. Like, don't just dive into a relationship, because I think relationships are where, again, those issues with ourselves, our patterns really show up. So do some work on yourself, shift, and give yourself some time to heal some of those things before, they're really in your face. And when you're dealing with it with yourself and another person, it's so much stronger.
It's so much stronger. And that's why nowadays I'm also calling myself a dating strategist, because, for me, it really is just like finding out a strategy that's going to break the patterns. Like first let's figure out what didn't work. And now let's move over here and figure out like 3 things you can do differently to build a new habit. And like say that familiarity principle that you might be having, that you keep attracting emotionally unavailable men. Okay, so where's the breakdown? Well, the breakdown is that you're not sharing enough about yourself and you're not demanding more. So you keep attracting, kind of emotionally distant relationships. So where can we move over in the other side to start work on having a voice, sharing your feelings, expressing yourself even on first dates and see who listens. So those are the things, again, that can build that confidence too. And you'll notice a big difference in your interactions as well.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And it's a process and a journey, and to recognize what you're ready for. When I went through my divorce, I just knew I needed to take some time. So it's funny. I think a lot of people just expect me to just like quickly marry off again or something. And I was like, oh no,
Oh,
you're not doing that.
yes.
No, I literally think that's what people thought that would happen. And it was the best gift I think I could have given myself at that point in my life, was to just take stock. I did date. I mean, I dated, but it was just like, no, I'm not ready to dive in, because those patterns, until you've done the work, they just keep showing up again and again, because really it's a lesson, right? Those patterns, those types of relationships, it's showing you what you need to work on.
Yes, it's so, so true. And I love what you just said, because that's also something I see a lot, is that people don't have clarity in what it is that they want. They listen to like society or friends, like you said, like, oh, you looking to get married again, and when you have a boyfriend, and like there's all these expectations. But that's just noise that's going around. If you can really pull in and focus on, well, I don't want a boyfriend right now. Like, I just want to have fun. Maybe I just want to have sex. Like, that's cool. Like, just say that out loud.
Yeah.
And so that's really important when I work with people. I actually have them write out a mission statement, like in business, on what they want to accomplish in the next 3 months. And just keep your eye on the ball for the next 3 months and figure that out. But you have to be specific, because if you're not clear, then you're going in as the relationship girl, and then you're going to attract the wrong thing for you at that time.
So true. Well, this has been so fun. I know you have a new program you want to share with us. It sounds really amazing. So if you could share that and, anything else you'd like to share as well.
Oh, yeah. Well, I have my own podcast too. It's called The Charisma Quotient. So you can check that out. But I'm really super excited about the new project that I have. It's an audio course. It's called This May Be Why You Suck at Dating.
Great name.
Yeah, it's kind of in your face, but really what it's about is I walk you through my 5 dating archetypes and why women have these challenges when they're out there trying to search for love. And, really, and what my hopes is that so that you don't feel so alone. Obviously, I developed these archetypes because these are common things that every woman struggles with. You may find that you have traces of each of these characteristics, but there's usually one archetype that really stands out. There's 5 of them. And so in this course, I, first of all, give an overview of those archetypes, and then I do live coaching of real women who are that archetype, and I help them through that. And it comes with some PDFs and workbooks, and there's even a quiz that you can take to see what you are. So I would love to share that with your audience as well.
Amazing. And how do people connect with that?
Yeah, well, you can probably find it on my podcast, The Charisma Quotient.
Okay.
It'll be also on my website, seltzerstyle.com.
Amazing. Well, it's been so fun to reconnect with you. I feel like we could definitely talk a lot and
Oh my gosh,
for a long time. So we'll just have to have you back so we can talk more.
Sounds good. And you're going to come on mine.
Yay. So I love it. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today.
Thanks, Laura.
And thank you everybody for listening. If you'd like more information about me, you can go to my website, healingpowers.net. You can find me at Twitter at Laura Powers, Instagram at Laura Powers 44, and on Facebook at Healing Powers.